Hello everyone, my name is Alex and you're listening to the Sagar Stance podcast where I give my Sagar stance on anything and everything stand-up paddleboarding as well as personal and lifestyle. Long time no see. It has been a while. It has been over a month. I was busy. I bet you can all know, you guys can tell what I was busy with. And that was the ICF World Championships located in Sarasota, Florida, that happened about a week and a half ago. My family attended, my brother, my dad, and I competed, and in this episode I'm going to talk about my experience. I'm going to talk about what I did, what I was thinking, more detailed than what my Instagram, for example, was showing, and I also hope to post a vlog for more visual things. I'm not going to use any visual aids this time around with the podcast because it is mainly audio, so I want to save all of the visual things for my blog. Did I say blog? I meant vlog. I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel and I will make it known when I post it, and I hope to have it up maybe by the end of this week. I don't know. It's been so crazy this week. I'm going to talk about what happened after I came back home from the event so you understand, but I'm going to get right into it with what I did and everything that happened during that event. So before the competition, I actually filmed myself every week leading up to the event. I was really busy and I was having a lot of interesting, fun things that I had to do every week leading up to the event, so I decided to vlog my week every week. So that's fun. I'm trying to post those before I post the ICF vlog, like the actual vlog. So if you want to watch, if you want to see what I was doing leading up to it, feel free, go ahead. I'll link my YouTube channel down below. I know I have a YouTube channel for this one, but I have a separate YouTube channel where I post vlogs and just whatever I want. And also before the competition, I did talk about it in my vlogs, but I was having a lot of issues with my back and my shoulders. In the 9 years that I have paddled, I have never had them checked. Every injury, I've kind of just put it off on the burner, never really worried about it, and eventually it went away, so I didn't really have to worry about it that much. But coincidentally, I'm assuming with the stress and everything that I was doing, all of that tension and all of like my past injuries were building up, and it got to the point where it was not allowing me to paddle. And I would go to physical therapy and try to fix it, but every time they would work on the tension on my back, I would be so sore for 2 to 3 days after. So that was me out from training for 2 to 3 days at a time, and I could not excuse that. I don't know what the word is, but you know what I'm trying to say. I couldn't just not train for 3 days because my back and my shoulders were recovering from a physical therapy session. And the way that I really noticed something was going on was every Sunday, my dad and I would go to the marina on the flat water, and we would do our distance session, like a serious distance session where we would time ourselves and everything. And I was going from maybe paddling, 10 kilometers. I would do 10 kilometers. I would push through it. I'd be fine. And every single week, it kept on getting lower. Like the amount of kilometers I could paddle kept on getting lower to the point where I could only paddle maybe 3 kilometers. I think one of the times at 3 kilometers, I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this. So it was really concerning to where I was getting scared. I'm like, I can't paddle. What am I doing? I'm just in so much pain. My neck is tired, my shoulders are tired, and it's a pain that I never really felt before. There's pain that you're used to, like you can recognize certain types of pain, but this was a pain that I had never experienced before. And so I was pretty hesitant with what I was feeling, and I'm like, something is wrong. I don't like this. I think my back and my shoulders are getting to a point where they are very much not happy. So I decided to use my last resort, and that was prolotherapy. Basically, it's multiple shots in targeted areas where you are injured or feel pain. I used this for my knees when I was dealing with my knees, which coincidentally, I am wearing the exact same sweatshirt that I wore to film my knee podcast episode. They used it on my knees back in the day, and that was when they injected my knees, it was around like 20 to 30 shots each knee. It was crazy. But after I got them done, it was the very first time in months, when I tell you months, that I had felt no pain in my knees. It doesn't fix the issue, but basically what it is that it's glucose. There's like a fancier name for it, but glucose, and you inject it, and it basically, with like the sugar and everything, it signals to your brain and your body where it needs healing. So the body prioritizes it a little bit more. And so I used it for my shoulders and my back because I'm like, okay, I need something at least to get me through the next few weeks leading up to my competition. And 3 weeks out, I was finally able to actually paddle. It was still causing me a few issues, but it was the first time that I was able to do a 10K, and I was actually able to paddle comfortably for longer periods of time. So that was great. It was nice. That was handled, or that was dealt with. And I also got a sports massage a few days before we left, so that was really nice and comforting. And when this person was working on my back, she'd be like, relax this part, and I'd be like, it's already relaxed. I was that tense. They said that there wasn't a single part that they touched on my back that wasn't tense. So now that I'm back home, I'm trying to prioritize that a lot more and kind of go to physical therapy a lot more, but I'm so busy, I can't do it. I also, before I went and competed, before my competition, I wrote down a few expectations for myself, so I'm going to list them off right now. First one is that I decided to go with an open mind. I did not know what to expect. I had never been to a World Championships before. I had never been to a competition this big, so I had no idea what to expect, so I didn't allow myself to overthink everything that was happening. I decided to go with an open mind and kind of go with the flow and figure it out once I was there. I'd also never been put in a situation like this where I was up against the best in the world. So I was ready to be, one, humbled, and two, to learn a lot. I wanted to understand what the level was in the world for women athletes. Another thing is that I wanted to basically go up against myself. I knew that I wasn't going to break any records. I knew that I wasn't going to be super duper flying, but I also knew that I wanted to make myself proud. So I was going up against myself. I wanted to make myself proud. As long as I was happy with my performance, maybe I didn't do well in regards to all the other competitors, but if I felt good and I felt like I gave it my all, then I would have been happy. And lastly, that I knew that my weaknesses would come to the forefront, and that was a realization that I had a few weeks prior to the competition. Well, it's always something that happens, especially with the nerves and everything. A lot of your weaknesses are going to show up because you maybe don't have as much muscle memory as you thought you would, or you just wasn't as mentally stable as you would be during your trainings. I know that when I'm nervous, I get noodle legs, so I mess up on my turns and my starts and just anything related to my legs. I can have a strong upper body, but with my nerves, I know that my legs just kind of go meh. But yeah, this point kind of made itself very clear a few weeks prior to this competition when we had a local competition that really shook me up. I let a few things people said behind my back get in my head. Drama, guys, I know, right? Just people commenting about my skill level and everything, and it shook me up, especially because I knew that they were going to be there. And I low-key kind of cried for 10 minutes leading up to the race. I cried for 10 minutes, wiped off my tears, and got on the start line. So I was not in the right headspace at all. And of course, the race went horribly. There were 3 turns per lap, I think 3 or 4 laps, and on the first lap I fell on every single turn, and then I think I fell on every other turn after that. I fell on my beach start. I felt so weak and tired, and someone who I'd been competing with for 4 years who had never beat me, that was the first time she had ever beat me. So that was the first time she had ever beat me in 4 years, in the entire time that we've gone up against each other. And it also hurt even more because I was front and center in a local competition at my local beach in front of everyone that knew me, and I did horribly. And that race was kind of a slap in the face, and it made me realize, or it made me think at least, that oh, Alex, you are not ready for Worlds. What the heck are you thinking going to the World Championships? You are not ready for this. But instead of letting me think that for a longer period of time, I sat myself down and I'm like, Alex, anything can be better than that. Anything that you can do in the next week at the Worlds will 100% be better than what you did and how you performed at that event. And I realized why I messed up, and a large part of it was my mental state. So that was something that I took into account when going to the ICF. We got there at least 1 to 2 days before the actual competition started, and those days were a mix of training and shopping, because going to the US, you gotta shop a little bit, We also got to meet up with a ton of our paddling friends, ran into so many people like Campbell, Soren, Juliet, Itzel, David, all these people. We got to see them before the event, and it was nice to catch up and see everyone. We signed up and received our IDs, and we also got to do the fun green screen video. I've never done that before, and it was really fun. And yeah, whenever I would go back and watch my live performance, I would see me doing it. I did like the shaka. It was fun to see that. And also, I want to mention that I went there representing Mexico. It was the first time I'd ever represented Mexico in an international competition. Even though that I currently am not fully naturalized, it was not required to sign up under a certain country. So I got to represent Mexico, and it was super fun, and I am so happy that I was able to do it. It has been something that I've wanted to do for several years. We also got to unpack our SIC Maui boards. SIC graciously lent us boards to compete because we are their riders, and we got really lucky with the brand being able to give us all of these boards. They were brand new boards that we were able to use for this competition, which was awesome. And during the trainings, a lot of competitors were also training these days leading up to the competition. An issue that was very clear right away for majority of the athletes were the beach starts. With the hurricane and everything, it got to the point where the beach, once it hit the water, it would drop multiple feet, and there were areas where it was muddy. So normally you would have one step in the water before it dropped, but in some areas the mud was so bad that step, that little tap of water that you could do, it would sink your foot. But my brother and I honestly picked it up pretty quickly. I would look around, and many people were struggling with these beach starts. I would see full-on groups trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. The day right before the competition, people had picked it up and figured it out. But at the beginning, a lot of people were struggling, and Trace and I we were doing pretty good. We were fine. We felt pretty comfortable with our beach starts. Also, one thing to note, again, I had never been to a competition like this, so I had never been next to or seen these people in person, a lot of the big name competitors. So it was crazy that I was just casually paddling or practicing beach starts in between Cecilia Pampinella and Chila Coxis. I think that's how you say her last name. I could be wrong. I'm so sorry. But I was like, what am I doing here? Why am I in between you guys? What is this? It became very clear for all the competitors that the beach starts was a priority in training leading up to the competition. Some people spent time in the ER because the beach starts were so bad, and their fins would get stuck. Some people's fins split. I knew mine chipped. But yeah, it became a really big priority for all the competitors because that was going to be what determined your tech race, is whether or not you were able to successfully complete that beach start. On the second day of training, I was doing the beach starts, and I was starting to grow a little bit hesitant because they kept on changing the beach. They would use a machine and try to change it up a little bit and add and remove sand. And near the area where the chicane run was going to be, it got really muddy, and that was where you would sink. So I was starting to grow a little bit hesitant of doing these starts, and every single time I did it, I would mess up or kind of go weird or just slam myself onto the board, which was not the best. On one of my starts, I threw myself and I kind of went to the side, and the outside bone on my ankle hit the rail so hard. I remember I was barely able to stand up on my board after that. Nothing got injured. It just was a really hard hit, and it was annoying. I went and put some ice on it because I knew that nothing was wrong with it, but I also didn't want it to start swelling. It did bruise a little bit, but once the competitions and the races actually happened, it was not a problem, but it was definitely a good scare. And then we got the announcement that things were getting shifted around because of the tropical storm that was hitting Sarasota the first day of competition. So my sprints got pushed back, I think from Wednesday to Friday. Like I was going to do all of my sprint races on Friday. So I do the tech race on Thursday and then all of my sprints on Friday. So I started my event with the tech race, which I was not fond about for two reasons. Number one was that the technical race is the most technical race. So that's one that requires all of your focus, can't make mistakes. That's where your technique is put to the test. So I didn't like that I couldn't do the sprints first, because with those sprints, I just wanted to let out all of my energy. I just wanted to go boom and not have to worry that much about turns or pacing or anything. I just could go and I could paddle as fast as I could for 100 meters to just get those nerves out. But because I couldn't do that, I had to do the tech first. So it was getting me antsy. Also, my first technical heat was stacked, absolutely stacked. It was Juliet Tuheim, Esperanza Barreras, and Seychelles. Oh my goodness. When that heat was announced, I hadn't seen it, but my dad saw it first, and he was like, I don't think you want to check your tech heat. And I'm like, why? What happened? And when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I getting myself into? I can't, I don't know if I'm going to do this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know if I'm going to pass my first heat. But Seychelles, fortunately, was stepped back from that race. So it was only Esperanza and Juliet. But still, I knew I had my work cut out for me. So let's talk about the first day, Thursday, the technical race. I did not paddle until 2 p.m. I knew I only had one race that day, 2 p.m. and it was also announced that the beach start was switched to a sitting start, which, by the way, the amount of bruises that I got doing those sitting starts, it was insane, all the way down the inside of my legs. Every once in a while there would be a break from the heats, and I think there was a break right before my heat, before the open women's heats, so we were able to paddle the course. So I was able to figure out ways or just spots where I could cut on the inside, or places where I was okay to open it up a little bit. I'm really glad that I was able to paddle the course first and also kind of get an idea of how it felt, because I do not like to enter a race or event blind. And obviously with the race, I had to have a certain mindset for the event, and obviously my last competition I did horribly. My mindset was horrible. I also didn't eat breakfast that day because I was so nervous I was going to throw up if I even ate anything. So with this competition, there was a huge perspective and mindset shift for me, mainly because I knew that I wasn't a local girl in this event. No one knew me because I had never been to a competition like this, so I kind of slid under the radar, which I really liked. I should go to competitions like that more, where I'm not on anyone's radar, because it feels really nice. And I also knew that I was going up against myself. So my preparation, my thought process leading up to the event was to not think about it at all. All I did was just to think about what I had to do in that specific moment or the next step. So when I would warm up for my race, I was like, okay, I'm warming up my body. Okay, I'm going to go on the board, on the water, and move around a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go to ID. And then, okay, I'll get on the start line. Instead of thinking about all of those things at once, I just thought about one at a time. And I also knew if that I was proud of my performance, I'd be happy. And yeah, I knew that getting nerves for this specific event was going to be no bueno, because like I said, I get noodle legs. So if I was nervous during the tech, a lot of these girls are awesome at turns, especially on flat water, so I could not mess up at all. But the heat went really well. I truly surprised myself in this heat. At the start, I managed to stay with Juliet and Esperanza to the buoy, and for the rest of the lap, I stayed right behind them. Near the end, when I realized that no one was going to catch up to me, I did slow down a little bit because I did want to save my energy. I also know that Esperanza and Juliet were probably not going 100%. I'm aware of that, but hey, I kept up with them, all right? I kept up with them, and I'm happy to say that. I was telling myself after that heat that, oh wow, if that was the only thing I did, I would have been proud of myself. I was saying that was a career highlight of mine. So yeah, I passed my first heat in third place, which was pretty cool, and that was all for Thursday. And then next day, there was a pause from tech to do sprints. So let's talk about sprints. Day 2, it was a Friday, and we got to do sprints. And because of the schedule shift, I had to do all of my sprints that day. So it was going to be heavy. I knew it was going to be heavy. The sprints were pretty fun and interesting because no one had done 100-meter sprints before for a competition. This was brand new. There was nothing anyone could compare each other to that much because no one had done a straight 100-meter event before, I don't think, so especially for paddleboarding. And also because this facility that we were at was a canoe facility, they had the cones that you can put your board in, so it would drop when you were able to go. And I really liked that because I hated the thought of someone holding my board from behind. Not only was I not going to be able to see them, but they were also going to be able to move it without me knowing, seeing, or allowing it. So yeah, the thought of someone holding my equipment was not something good for me. I did not want people touching my board before I was going to go compete. So having the cones actually did really help. Even though they were really inconvenient, especially with the wind that was going on, it was fine. And also every single heat that I had, I got super lucky in that I was on the first or second lane, and that meant that I was away from the wind. I did not get hit by the wind almost at all, so I got really lucky with that. First heat was at 9 a.m. and I was able to pass it. At first I thought I got third place, and I was like, that's a little too close to fourth. That's a little too close for comfort. But then I realized I got second and I felt a lot better. What was crazy is that majority of the people in my heat barely even made it to the start line before the horns went off because there was so much buildup in ID check. Not enough volunteers, not enough people helping put the Velcro for the boards, and it was horrible in there. I sat there for a really long time. I just barely made my heat, and I knew that there were girls still in my heat, still waiting when I got on the water, and someone even missed their heat because of it, and someone in my heat missed the heat. And it was also because a lot of competitors in later heats wanted to get on the water first. And I thought that was really stupid. When I was rushing to get to my heat and to get to my lane, there was a girl who was also going to be in my lane who was just chilling there doing nothing. And I'm like, girl, you're not supposed to be here. You got on the water before us? Really? It was kind of annoying. And also really unfortunate that someone missed their heat because of it. Next heat was an hour later, and this determined whether or not you were going to go into the semifinals, the final C, or get disqualified. And I told myself that I was fine with Final C, and I raced, and I got Final C, but when I got Final C, I'm like, ugh, really? Because I made a lot of mistakes that race. I missed a lot of my paddle strokes, and I also fell right at the end. I completed the 100 meters, but I fell right after, and I don't know, with the stakes getting higher every heat and it getting more competitive every time, I was psyching myself out, and I was like looking at the other competitors when I was doing the race, when it's like, girl, worry about your own race, come on. Had I given it my all and got Final C, I think I would have been a lot happier with my performance or just how I was placed. But because I made mistakes that ultimately made me get Final C, I was a little bummed out. But I knew not to overthink it, and I decided to direct my attention towards the next thing, which I don't remember what it was. It was probably just resting for a little bit. But I knew at the end of the day, I had to do my Final C heat. The Final C heat was strong, and it was crazy. In my heat, there were paddlers like Kim Barnes and Rika Okwaki. In the finishing times, the top 5 paddlers all completed the race with less than a second from each other. Or basically, there was less than a second difference between first place and 5th place. And I got 4th place. And I did make a few mistakes, which was really annoying. I missed around 3 strokes, which doesn't seem like much, but when you realize how close we were and how short of a race it was, those 3 paddle strokes could have meant a lot, and it could have changed everything. But arriving back from the heat, I got a ton of hugs and cheers. It felt like I had won first place in the Final A, alright? Support system was great during that race. And the rest of the day was spent watching the final heats because that was the day all the sprints finals were happening. My brother got 8th in Final A, which was awesome. It's insane insane. And we had dinner with our family and basically was just getting carbs in and making sure that we had enough energy for the next day, which was the tech finals. Third day, Saturday, tech finals. But that day was very, very interesting. I had a heat early in the morning and I was warming up like usual. I would do my ground warm-ups and then I would do my water warm-up before I went to go to ID check. But when I got on the water, when I tell you, I felt the worst pain on my lower left back that I had ever felt before. It was insane. It was so bad to the point where I could not paddle on my left side, which was my strong side. So I'm like, uh-oh, what's happening here? And the more I would paddle, like usually you can kind of paddle these things out. It was not happening. I could not paddle it out. And I was kind of feeling it, and I had felt this pain before, but never this bad. And I started freaking out. I'm like, what's happening? Why can't I paddle on my left side? I need help. Please, someone help me. And I knew I had like at least 2 more races to go, like that first heat, tech heat, and then distance the next day. So I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what's happening? What's happening? I knew I was going to feel it during the race, but I also knew that I was going to get filled up with adrenaline because that's what my body does. I can rely on adrenaline so well. It's nice. So I definitely relied on adrenaline to get me through that race, or at least that first heat. And the heat went nice. I just barely made it to final C. The buoy that was supposed to be the chicane run always gave me problems because I am goofy footed. So my strong side is a right shoulder turn, but that chicane run was a almost 180 left shoulder turn. And that's not my strong suit. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. So every single time I did that buoy, I kept on opening up. On that turn, on this heat, I let someone go in front of me because I didn't want to take the inside. I didn't feel comfortable or strong enough to take the inside, so I let them take the inside. They were also pushing me towards the buoy, and I didn't have any energy to push back. So I let them go. I let them go in front of me. But then because of that, a lot of people caught up to me. And my family was saying that I had at least fourth place, but because of that buoy, I didn't make it. I only made final C. If I had gotten top 4, I would have made it to the semifinals. So that was a bummer, but whatever. You live and you learn. My first heat was early in the morning, the one that I qualified for final C. And then my final C heat was way later in the day. So I had like the entire day. And I was just resting, trying to stretch and relax. I couldn't feel the pain on my back, but I knew that it was there. And I was questioning whether or not I wanted to save myself for the distance, if I wanted to drop out of my final C heat and just do the distance or what. But I'm like, you know what? I'm already like pretty messed up. 1,000 meters isn't going to do much difference. So I decided that I was going to do my final C heat. And when I went to warm up for this final C heat, the pain was still there. The pain was still there. And every time I paddled on my left side, I would get dizzy on the water. That was probably not the smartest thing to keep on testing because I'd be like, oh, I just felt really dizzy. Wait, let me see that again. And I'd do it again to see if like the dizziness like came back, and it would come back every time. So I'm like, okay, adrenaline for the win on this one because oh my goodness, I cannot paddle on my left side when I'm only thinking about paddling on my left side. I have to be racing to actually feel comfortable, and I have to have the adrenaline rushing through my veins. And I knew that also I could ignore the pain for a few minutes if it meant completing a race. The race was cutthroat. Everyone was at it. We were all so badass. We were just boom, 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 boom. Everyone was so close to each other, rushing the buoys. I managed to get the inside almost every time. I got the inside of the chicane buoy, which was nice. It was great. I felt really good because that was the one I kept on messing up every single time. And right at the end on the last stretch, I managed to go from 4th to 3rd. Yay. I managed to pass Kim Barnes, which girl's a badass. I competed against her in the Carolina Cup when I got 10th and she got 1st. she's a badass, all right? But yeah, I passed her. She got 4th place. I got 3rd place. And then Maddie Miller got 1st and Maddie LeBlanc got 2nd. And we all like hugged each other and was like talking about the race after. It was really nice. However, after the race, I was starting to feel my back injury just by doing normal things, just by kind of crunching my back, like kind of moving it off to the side or stretching. I was feeling it and I was not happy. So I decided to sleep on it. Sleeping on it, like literally, was also not really the best because I was sleeping on a pull-out couch in our hotel room. But I decided to sleep on it and decide whether or not I was going to go through with the distance race in the morning. And when I woke up, I realized that I was not gonna be able to do the distance race. I knew that with the tech race, the adrenaline was what kept me going. But with an almost 12-kilometer race, that adrenaline is going to fade. You know it's going to fade. So I realized that my strategy was not going to translate to a distance race. So I stepped away. And I'm really sad that I did because I was able to compare myself to the best in the world for sprints and tech. But I never got to compare myself to everyone in distance, which is a bummer, and I'm not happy about it. But I knew that I had to step away from it because it was insane how much pain I was in. So that day, I just watched everyone do their races, and after awards, I ran around the mall with Soren and Trace, and that was really fun. So, afterthoughts. What do we think about the event? What do we think about all the things? It was really fun. I'm really happy that I did it, and I hope that we can do it next year. Dad, if you're listening to this, I definitely surprised myself. I did not expect to get final C. I expected to get thoroughly humbled, and I honestly kind of wish I did, because now I'm like, wait, I'm actually okay. I'm not that bad at this. I wanted to get humbled, so I'd want to like kick my ass into like training a lot harder and be like, okay, Alex, you gotta step up your game. But I didn't do that bad, so I don't have that. I don't have that incentive because I didn't get kicked in the ass as much as I thought I would. Obviously, I still want to get better, but I didn't get that extra oomph, you know? I also was really proud of myself for controlling my nerves. Like, I was able to eat breakfast in the morning. That's unheard of for me. I was able to eat breakfast in the morning every one of my event days. That's unheard of for me. It was also nice meeting a lot of people. A lot of people are so nice, and it's great. Also, the commentators knew who I was and knew who we were as a family. We got a special shout out. I'm going to put it here so you guys can hear it.
Very young. How old is Trace, Matty? Do you know? He looks about 15 or something.
You know what? We've talked quite a bit about the Ostrovsky family. They are very, very active. There's a very active sub-community down in Sayulita, Mexico. That's where they're established.
So that was nice. That was fun. Once I got back, I took a week off. I'm still kind of in my week off. It's Tuesday, but I have so many work priorities and personal creative priorities that I want to get done with like this podcast and all the vlogs that I haven't been going back and actually training. I paddled yesterday with my mom, but I was going to go to the gym today. Couldn't go because I'm like, you know what? I don't have enough time. I'm happy that I actually feel comfortable to be like, you know what? I'm going to take this morning off to prioritize other things, because before the competition, I could not do that. I could not excuse me having to put my training off to the side in order to do something else in my life. But now I feel comfortable doing that. And this month is definitely a huge just self-care month, because I put so many things off to the side leading up to this competition, so many things in my personal life. Now I finally have the time and energy and the mental space to actually think about these things and prioritize them, which is great. And that also includes the podcast, hopefully, especially because it's been almost a year since I've started this podcast. I don't know, should I do something? Should I do something for it? Okay, we'll think about it. Okay, well, we'll see. I also went to physical therapy to check my back. I have a good announcement. It was just a muscle spasm. It was just a muscle spasm. I'm really happy that it was nothing permanent, like something, it wasn't like an actual injury. It was just a muscle spasm, and I paddled yesterday, and I felt good. I felt nice. I have to keep on going to PT because I still have all of that tension in my back. Now I actually can sacrifice a few days to to work on my back and make sure I'm in tip-top shape. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope you got a little bit of insight. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you're watching like a YouTube video, like this, the YouTube video version of this, you can comment or you can DM me. My paddling Instagram is going to be in the description. But anyways, my camera's about to die. Thank you so much for listening, and make sure to rate the podcast. And I'll catch you guys next week. I'm committing myself to this next week. Okay, bye guys.